Hi, I'm Linda Leon, and welcome to the Author's Journey. I hope that you enjoyed the series that we're going to be putting together for you this year. I have lots of good ideas that I want to be sharing with the audience, and I'm so excited that we're into the next year of our series. On our first telecast, we talked about what does it take to have a good book, and I shared with you all about some of my particular people who I've come in contact with that have been clients or have been authors on my podcast, and these people did produce quality books, and I shared some of the things that they did to make it quality. And then we talked about starting off a quality book by making sure you have your manuscript evaluated before you begin that hard process of producing that book. It's always good to get a second or third opinion to help you to develop. All of these things are part of becoming a good writer. And today what we want to talk about is defining the audience. It takes a lot to figure out who your audience is going to be. Who are those people who are going to purchase your book? And to me, the best way to do that is to begin brainstorming. You actually have to sit down and think, who needs this material? What type of people are they? Now, I have my 2 new books are coming up this year, and you can find out about those on my website at bookmarketingprofessionals.com. I'm going to be sharing some of the principles that are in that book in this series because I want to have a consistent approach this year to going through our marketing topics. Last year, what I did was try to make sure you had lots of ideas. And so I gleaned from people that I've worked with, my own personal experience, and I talked about all kinds of ways to market the books and tools to use to market the books and how to go about doing that. But this year, my focus is going to be different because I want to emphasize putting structure behind everything you do, because that's part of the not only the writing progress, but it's also a part of the marketing process where everything is done in a consistent way. So we're going to start off with what's the most important thing in my opinion, and that is defining who that audience is. And when you begin to define your audience, what you want to look at are things like demographics. Who is it that you're really trying to reach? Are you trying to reach females? Are you trying to reach males? Are you trying to reach the youth marketplace? Is it a general book where it could relate to anybody of any age? What about the income variables? Is that important to you when it comes to marketing your book? Are you trying to market to people who are a little bit more affluent, who might be able to spend more on not only your initial book, but upcoming book projects that you have or other products that you're going to put along the side, the book that you have? All of these things you have to look at. And then once you hone in on exactly who you think that audience is going to be, then you do everything that direction. Most people, when they come to me and I ask them, well, who's your audience? They don't know. They haven't thought about it. What they think about is, I have a great book. I know that somebody's going to benefit from this, but they never sat down and thought about who is going to benefit from this. Now, I'll tell you from my own personal experience, when I first began to market my cookbook that I have, the people who I thought were going to be my audience did not turn out to be my audience. And that was quite amazing. That was a revelation that took me almost 2 years to figure out. What I did, my initial goal was to write a book that would teach people how to eat healthy. And so I thought, my initial thought was, go to people that are concerned about health. So I thought, okay. So when I first began to develop the idea of who my audience was, I thought about families. I thought about single moms. I thought about parents, husbands and wives who are trying to set a healthy nutritional regime into their household. I thought about people who were on weight loss plans and, all of that kind of thing. People who were, watching their weight or dieting on a regular basis. I thought that those were the type of people who would be interested in a cookbook that taught healthy concepts, and vegetarian at that, adding that, because what I was doing was setting it up to teach people how to incorporate vegetarian meals into their diet, but make those meals like the things they're used to cooking, like pizza and lasagnas and mock chickens and all this kind of thing. And my story behind that, it's quite vast, because my knowledge comes from so many resources from school that I graduated from, and also from living around my grandmother, who became a vegetarian later in her life, and she taught me so many different principles and all these kind of things. Well, anyway, so my goal was make sure these people get the information about your book. But then what I found out was a lot of people are not interested in being consistently healthy. They talk about losing weight, or they talk about raising a healthier family, or they talk about helping their children to lose weight. But then when you actually present them with information and say, now let's engage and do this, it didn't happen. So the things that I did was I marketed to churches, I did classes, I did cooking demonstrations, just to the general public, and got absolutely nowhere. So then I had to sit down and brainstorm again. I'm like, well, who wants this? I said, Lord, I know you inspired me to write this book. I said, but it's so frustrating because I'm not finding buyers, and I want buyers. Of course, you write a book, you want buyers. And so I began to think and think and think. And so one of my friends talked to me about the people in her church. And she said, well, the people in my church believe in health. They believe in nutrition. They believe in all kind of things. And you need to compile your recipes and all your information that you have, put it in a really nice format, and maybe market to that group of people. And I had never done that before. I had never been to, that segment of society before. But I took her advice. I sat down and I said, okay, well, let me present it to this group of people. And lo and behold, they became my audience and are still my audience to this day, which has been over 10 years since I wrote the first edition of the book. I think I'm about in the third edition of the book now. But for over 10 years, that group has been my marketplace. Those are the people who will buy my book. It has been in their bookstores. It has been on their television networks. It has been in their cooking classes, everything, just all over the place, because I finally found that niche. So it takes a while to find a niche, and you cannot get discouraged in that process. You have to keep narrowing things down until you find a group of people who can relate to what you have to offer. And then once they can relate to what you have to offer, they will buy your book. And then you will begin to sell, and then they will tell other people, and then you'll sell more books. And that's really how the whole process works. It's all about connecting, but you can't connect unless you sit down and define your audience. Now, there's more information about that in my book, so please visit my website and you'll get insight on that. That principle that I presented to you today will carry you a long way, not only with your first book, but every book that you'll produce. Sit down. Be willing to go through the process of, this didn't work this time. Don't throw in the towel and give up. Continue to press until you find it, because if you have it in your heart to write it, there is somebody in the world, and that's your marketplace. Your marketplace is not your city, not the United States. It's the world. Somebody in the world will read it, but you have to have the fortitude to keep going. So one of the things that I did to help me initially, which might be beneficial to you all, is to go through some directories and see classifications of people listed. Can any of those people be your source? And then you just continue until you find that pocket. I would encourage you to spend more time on this. Even if you've already gotten your book in print, you can still work at defining who that audience is. And you will eventually sell lots of books. Thank you for listening.